Change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. And then you go on into some action.
And we must continue to follow the dictates of our conscience, even if that means breaking unjust law.
What do you call second-class citizenship? Why, that's colonization. Second-class citizenship is nothing but 20th century slavery.
I do not plan to cooperate with evil at any point.
It's time today for us to start doing some standing and some fighting to back that
up. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you guys are watching us, listening to us on the podcast platform, on the YouTube app, wherever you are listening or watching us. Thank you. Welcome to the Martin Times Malcolm podcast. Right now, we are about to go into a few great topics that I'm excited to talk to my brothers today with. Right now, we're in our 4th episode. I'm really excited that we at this point. It's a milestone for us. Look forward to a good couple of topics. And feel free to comment. This isn't a live show, but feel free to comment down below if you're on the YouTube and whatever podcast app you're using. Please give us a review. We definitely need that so we can spice up the show and we know that y'all are listening, watching, and supporting the show, man. So I'm going to give it to you guys as you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves as you bring in your energy of the way we're going to start the show, man.
Well, you know me, I'm Shaka. You know what I'm saying? I'm, artist, also father, all of that. Teacher, art educator, always here to bring knowledge. Your resident hotep. Holla at your boy. MXM.
Awesome.
And it's Bliss in the building. Believe in love is simply the solution. And ready to chat. Always a student, sometimes a teacher. Let's get it.
Awesome, man. So we're going to go straight into it, man. Word on the street, man. We're going to talk about reparations. Reparations, it's actually been a topic that's been on the agenda. I've seen it for a couple of years. Different politicians that have used it to kind of get the political machine running for them at the beginning, at the ground level. I've heard it be talked about. I've heard it talked about by a few other politicians that are not even in office. So I've been wondering about it, asking the question of if a large population of Black people were to actually get paid like large stimulus checks, like large amounts of money, would that change our or Black people's ability to kind of fight against social justice issues? They would start looking at, Black people as if we can't really talk about different things that are going on in the community or in the world because we just got paid? Would that buy our silence in a way if that happened?
I think it might. I mean, I think that for some African Americans, for one, we've been impoverished, so getting something like that is going to be necessary for our survival. So nobody's really caring about what everybody else is going to think. They're more so thinking about their own survival. And so I think that's important. As far as what everyone else thinks, I was talking to some of y'all earlier about this movie called Watchmen, right? And how it's exactly like that. You get reparations, and now everybody else looks at you differently, right? You have a different social standing, in America because you have money.
Right.
What is that really? Even though folks were I don't like you guys because you got reparations. What did it do for the folks who got it? It helped to take care of past injustices that happened. You know what I'm saying? And there are other groups that have gotten reparations. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like African Americans are the only group that have ever sought after reparations. The Japanese have sought after it when they were in internment camps in World War II. The Native Americans had reparations, and they received it in the form of reservations. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that as Black people, we got to stop thinking something like that is a silly thing to talk about. We don't want to talk about reparations. That's something that shouldn't be discussed. I think I wonder what would Martin and Malcolm think about something like this?
I think when you ask a question like that, what Martin and Malcolm would think about this, you have to think that in their times, it was a different struggle. Yeah. So reparations and the applicability of it, you got to remember, they were fresh out of slavery. So they were the people who, fresh out of slavery, where do you get a job at? Right. And that's when the reparations were most needed, because that was the time when you could have took that money and built more Black-owned businesses would have led to generations like trickle down to us where we would have more knowledge and information because in those times some stuff could have been built. Whereas now we're so lost in the matrix. It's like Nate, like just to bring it back to what Nate was asking, would we still have a voice as far as those situations go? When you talk about the other nations who have gotten reparations, I guess you'd have to look at their situations. Are their arguments still valid now that they got their reparations? And I don't know because I don't know what their voices were like before they got their reparations. Because everybody you name, the Jews, the Indians, they're all pretty much quieted down to where I'm sure at a different time they're probably much louder. So I don't know. I would say to look at like the past and see what history showed us as far as to make an assessment of that. You know.
Yeah, that's a
great point, Jason. And I mean, honestly, you can't really deny that humanity is real. Like if you get a lot of money, you're gonna calm down. It's usually gonna make it easier for you to live life, make it easier for you to, answer the questions that you come up with. And if we had it that easy, or if somebody got a large amount of money to where they didn't have to think about some of the things we have to struggle with now, would that like change our culture? Would that change the way we live?
Something that we're trying to attain. Like, I mean, like, don't we get tired of doing marches and folks being shot and killed? Wouldn't we like to have a certain social standing,
a goalpost? Yeah.
Right. Like where people look at us like, oh, okay, we can't do that because they have the money to hire attorneys and make our lives miserable, right? And so, like, I think that would be, in a sense, a way to kind of answer some of these like time, age questions and that Black folks have had about our survival, in America,
Yeah,
that's true.
It's not I think at this point it's not about revolution; it's more about evolution. And that's what I mean. That money would give that opportunity to create evolution, like as far as financially, like with a lump sum like that. But the next question is, what will people do with those reparations? And remember, a president almost won an election off stimulus checks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So imagine and that was a little sum of money. Imagine a large sum of money. And what did most people do with their stimulus checks? I don't know many people that invested it into something else. I definitely turned my $1,200 into much more down the line because, I think to invest everything. But is that a reality in our culture right now? I don't know.
Like somebody had said something, I think earlier about Dave Chappelle's show, right? And although it was very funny, there was some very serious elements that came out of it, right? Like there was the news reporter, he was talking about what happened when the people got reparations. He said that there were like 12 or 20,000 record labels started, this morning alone. That's serious. Like,
right. That's substantial,
like,
right?
That's real. Like, what I'm saying? Like, you imagine like folks who are musical geniuses sitting in their basement, working on their computers. If they got that money, what would that do to boost their career? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To help put them in places that they wouldn't be, right? To be able to create their own and then put their own families on and other folks on to build business. That's a business like boomer. So like, when you invest in a community, you get more out of that community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
and wouldn't it allow you to kind of escape the community for some people who might decide that they wanted to like live internationally or travel or just blow their money worldwide, and live the fast way. You know what I'm saying? Some people might decide to do that. In the 60s and the 50s, I'm not sure how people had access to passports. And, honestly, when reparations was a conversation originally, I don't think that there was as much accessibility to life that they had. So, like, they didn't imagine, like, if you gave 100,000 or whatever, 40 acres and a mule to that population, they literally could not have done anything except take that 40 acres and their mule and go farm it somewhere. If you gave somebody a sum of money right now, I'd actually be able to take it offshore, and the country would no longer receive a benefit from that money. So that might be a deterrent for them to even want to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Big time.
Because at that point, then it's like I could take my money and go to highway. You know what I'm saying? And the money is gone. So like, it's kind of hard to kind of imagine them being able to do it now.
Boy, that bought that van full of cigarettes, right? In the Dave Chappelle.
Right.
Cigarettes for the rest of my life. So like, I mean, I get that, and you know what? That's true, and I feel like that's that person's right? Like there are a lot of white folks who have fucked off their family's fortune, like
Right.
absolutely, like fucked it up. You know what I'm saying? And figured out some way to build from that. And I think that we as African Americans need to get an opportunity to either like be able to use that as a good opportunity, you know what I'm saying, or not. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, that's our right.
Right.
You know, to it. That's our ancestors like legacy. So
Right, but you also got to consider whoever's giving the reparations. Are they gonna? How are they gonna move up? Because if we move up financially, they have to move up. They have to
Right.
keep that bridge of income and wealth of separation. So what are they gonna do to increase their wealth? Are they gonna give out $3 trillion stimuluses to help their cause and
Right.
move up? You know,
They're not gonna make people richer than other people just because of that. That's true. That's true. I mean, you got to imagine what the ramifications of something like that would be in reality when it starts to actually be a conversation. Because if you a person that's been grinding hard and you a white person and you make $100,000, $200,000 a year and you got to pay your taxes, pay your bills and all of that, are you going to vote for a bill with somebody else, a black person from a community of people who don't work in your mind or whatever, and they don't, do anything? You can give them enough money to be richer than them, so.
yeah,
right. And what you said too about like when you compare money to 40 acres and a mule, the 40 acres and a mule concept was basically like you said earlier, so you can farm on your own land, so you can create sustainable living. But in order to do that, you would have to also teach farming and things like that. So there would be, like that's why I said where we're at right now is a whole different time base. Like when you talk about Martin and Malcolm's times, it was just a whole different environment. We're in the technology age right now. You know what I'm saying? We're so far from farming and agriculture, whereas back then they might have been a little more closer to it because they actually had to farm more and stuff like
Right.
that. So now I see it being more like my opinion is I see a lot of Dave Chappelle candidates. I see a lot of Mike Tyson type situations, blowing 200 mil in a short period of time because of education. Because of information.
That's a part of the culture in hip hop right now too, right? So it's like
blowing money fast.
That's kind of been it's for a while, but like something like that could be detrimental, right? At the same time, I think that we need the opportunity to say, okay, what are we going to do with this money? We need to have those conversations, right? Like once we get this money, let's start our own businesses. Let's start like doing the things that we really wanted to do, right?
And that brings me to the concept of where I'm at with the soapbox, because I think about where a lot of black people are in their communities right now. And it seems like every generation is fighting the same issues in the same cities. I live out here in the Oakland area. I know some people that's out there in DC, some people out there in New York, Chicago, Atlanta. Like these pockets of where black people live have always been places where, you get the single mothers and the kids who grow up as, we called it latchkey kids when we was growing up. And one of the questions I used to always have, man, is like, why do we always raise our children in these inner cities where all this stuff is going on when you can like live? Like my mom, she took me to South Carolina where I lived in, the sticks with my grandparents for a while. And she was too broke to live in the inner city. So she left. And I'm looking at other families that's broke and they live in the projects. And I'm like, what's the difference between like you living in the projects and you broke versus living in the country where you still might be broke, but you have a little bit more like, access, community might be a little bit more better. So what y'all think about that?
That way, I definitely want to chime in. So there's a few factors, right? So there was a mass migration of African Americans from the South during the 1920s, right? So African Americans left the South and came up to the North. One of the reasons why African Americans left was because of racial injustice in the South, like lynchings, stuff like that, and then also for better like opportunities.
You mean like the Mississippi, Chicago migration type thing? Like how all those people there's a lot of people from Chicago that's really from Mississippi? Like that? Yeah,
exactly. Gotcha. And the same thing like for New Jersey, New York. A lot of our family is from like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's because of the migration patterns that happen across the country. Now, I think that today, and black folks for a long time use the South to send our kids when things bad would happen. So like if a girl got pregnant and she was young, they send her to the South. If like
I got sent to the South.
Right.
You did.
I live with Marcel. That's how you know Marcel.
Right.
I know.
That's been a part of like our culture for a long time. You know, at the same time, like there's been a migration of black folks from the North back to the South, especially like Atlanta, big cities. What's that? Dallas, Houston. You know what I'm saying? A lot of black folks been going back. You know what I mean? But it's some people that lived in the North that just love that northern like mentality, that northern like feel, right? I was born in Jersey. Like I ain't learned how to drive until I was like 20 something.
I know.
Take the
world, bro.
Right. See, people from the South don't understand that, right? But if you're from the North, you can understand taking a bus, taking a train. Like that's what you do. You know what I mean? To get around. So.
And I feel like as far as like the communities go, like, you know, like a big part is giving back, man. Like more people need to come back and give back. That's the bottom line. If everybody who made it out, every athlete, you know, athletes touch on their communities. They do food drives, they do little things like that. But if everybody really came together and gave back, I mean, as much as they make it like all the struggle and all that in the poor communities, there's a lot of wealth in the black communities also. That's not.
I know.
And then what you said about getting out, it's like Shaka said, man. Like my mother will not leave New York. She will not leave no matter what. She just doesn't understand what life outside of New York is. She don't understand not having buses, not having trains. She's 80 years old and never drove a car in her life, and she never will. She doesn't have any intent because she was raised in this. And you got to think in a lot of these inner city cultures, they live off welfare. You're given just enough to do everything you need to do. Just like if you work a 9 to 5, a regular 9 to 5, you're given just enough to pay your bills, eat, and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to plan to move somewhere else to a better community, you know. And if you say your mom did that with you, she had the wisdom to do that. That's you can't expect everybody to have that wisdom because everybody's trying to get out of their own situations instead of thinking about what's good for the next generation. They're busy trying to still catch up from slavery.
Is there a way to encourage people to at least see what's out there? Because honestly, it ain't gonna hurt nobody to live in another state, especially now with people like states that legalizing certain recreational drugs. Like if you like to smoke weed and you live in a state where it's not legal or it's not really appreciated, like you could easily just move to another state like Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, and go to stores and it's just like buying sodas at a gas station. And so like I did.
Move to Colorado for the
Look, you want more black folks to go to the South, they need to bring back Freaknik, you know?
Yeah, that's a way.
That did cause a mass exodus. Everybody wanted to live in Atlanta, man. But then Atlanta, man, got so full, now you can't go to Atlanta. Atlanta full. Don't go to Atlanta, man. That's what everybody from Atlanta say. I moved out because it was full. I ain't gonna lie. But, you know, that concept makes me think about it, though, man, because, you know, every city that I know, a lot of black people, they do live in the same city and they do kind of get used to where they live, man. And that becomes like, you know, like when you were a sports athlete, you get to where you like worship your team and you love your team. You're not really, you locked in, you know what I'm saying? So like people, they from New York, they locked in. They don't want to live somewhere else because they feel like that's like going down some notches in the culture, you know what I'm saying? So I totally understand that, man. And I think about ways that people use to get out, as people use sports to get out of their inner city areas. They have to look at how they're going to make money off of their ability to play a sport. And the NCAA has always been held as a real, like, hard to navigate world for black athletes because you got to go to school for 4 years or less if you're good enough, and you don't get paid a dime. And you making money for these schools and you making money for these shoe companies and these brands, and you can't get paid $1, but you can go to these pro teams if you make it. And so now with the technology and with the way that you can go to G leagues or, you know, junior leagues and junior colleges and stuff like that, should amateur athletes find more ways to avoid the NCAA? because they get exposure. I'm sorry, I meant to say that. They do get exposure from the NCAA and the teams and the brands that they get associated with. But, like, is it time for amateur athletes, young dudes, to start thinking, like, maybe I should just go ahead and escape the world of NCAA stuff?
Well, I mean, I think that, it's made an opportunity for a lot of like young African Americans, right? As far as being able to play, show their skills to some of these talent scouts and stuff, in order for them to play professional ball. At the same time, I think that, there needs to be some sort of, stipulations. Like if they're making money for these, these companies and stuff like that, then their mama need to get a check. You know what I'm saying? They ain't grown. Their mama grown. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on there? Like, I think that
they made that illegal though. They made that to be something they look at, like the student is getting compensation and they don't even do that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's whack. Like,
bottom line, if you make money off something, you need to pay it. Bottom line, it's like women and men sports. Women can't get paid equally to men because they can't sell out the arenas that men sell out.
Right.
So bottom line, if you making money, you can get a real job and get paid at 18 anywhere else. Then we all do work studies on campus.
Right.
Weren't we making money while we were going to school? So why not in sports?
Right.
Why not in sports? If you're making money off them, because that's how the wheel works. If I'm making money,
need to have a work
then
study.
you make money.
They can always be like Jackie Moon. Jackie Moon was playing. He was the coach. He was the owner. You know what I'm saying? They could be like Semi Pro. Y'all ain't never seen that movie Semi Pro.
I did, but I don't remember it. Now that you brought it up, I did, but I don't remember.
Will Ferrell, the dude that was the coach, he was everything. He was the coach, he was the owner, and he was the player. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how the WNBA got to be. They got to go work the cameras. They got to go do the speeches and everything at the end. Everything.
The players, yep.
But I mean, honestly, I think that it's hard to live in a world where you risk getting hurt. And you're supposed to get a education and whatnot, but at the same time, there's no guarantees. And your family, like, if some of these kids, they have a talent that is generational wealth building, and they taking years out of that time to go make money for the machine in a way where the machine is supposedly promising them that they'll be able to make that money back in their future, but they might not.
Right, and check it, a lot of them don't make it.
Exactly.
That's a broken promise.
It's such a broken promise. You know how many brothers, a lot of us got uncles of like, man, almost went pro. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they didn't. You know what I mean? And they're part of that crew that got there but didn't make it there. And it's like so many, I mean, it's such a little amount of brothers that are chosen, for something like that. It's like almost worth, like, if you have other talents, I think it's good to, possibly look into those other talents. You know what I'm saying? If you're like somewhat good, you know what I mean, definitely look into other talents. Don't lose your day job. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I was one of those athletes who had NFL dreams but wasn't really ready. But I will say that I started selling drugs in college. Nate knows that. I started hustling in college. And why I took those routes is because I was playing sports. There was no way to possibly maintain a job, play sports, and be a student, get good grades. It was impossible. You wouldn't have no time. They don't even, whenever you're not in practice, you have a meeting. When you're not in meeting, you have work study. There's no way. But being that I knew when I realized I wasn't the athlete to do that, and they wasn't giving me no money, I found another way to make income to just get me through college the easy way, period. Because I didn't want to work and go to school. It's not that I couldn't work and go to school, but I didn't want that much pressure. And once I started doing it, it became easier. And it made all life easier to doing like that's my fun. The funniest of my story is I'm from New York. I had a rough upbringing, all that. I didn't start doing illegal activity till college in Florida.
Right. That's the irony. I know so many cats that actually got into the street after they went to college, and the community always act like, going to college is where you escape the street. So
not FAMU. Ask everybody who was a rattler. Not
you
the rattlers.
If you in the NCAA, man, you working hard, you putting money. It take money to eat right? It take money to go to the gym. It take money to do everything that you need to do if you're trying to be a pro athlete, man. So like that ain't nothing to play with, bro. Like, and then and then you got to win. Like, forget all that regiment of what we're talking about just to be consistent. You actually got to be on a performance-based, like, measuring stick where if you don't win and outbeat your competition on your team and beat the other team you're playing, you ain't going to even get looked at as even important.
Yo, it sounds like we're describing slavery right now. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we didn't say anything
About money.
Right, it sounds like we're talking about slavery.
Yeah.
Well, NCAA compared to slavery a lot. And that's the reason why people are trying to say that the NCAA is the most evil organization when it comes to the sports world because of the way that it picks people's dreams up. Like, teams get, bolstered by having these big programs, D1, D2 schools, and then they have students that they don't educate, students that they don't really put through a rigorous like training program, even in the sport. Like if you come in and you're a phenom, sometimes you don't even get training in what you are meant to do when you get to the next step. So it's kind of
quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
They
don't get coached.
They got all the talent. They got better arms. Michael Vick had a bigger arm. Michael Vick talent-wise should have been Tom Brady, but there was something Tom Brady was learning in here that they wasn't teaching Vick in here. That's the only thing that separates them because there's nothing else that you could say. Not speed, not power, not act. Vick had it all, but there was something missing in here, and that's because the quarterback has to know every position on the field. So somewhere you got to learn some type of analytical, logical type of in here that I believe they're not really teaching, quarterbacks from the inner cities and stuff like that. But if you from like a fancy program, then you'll learn it,
That's real, man. And so that brings me to the food for thought, man. And the concept is going to get a little deep here, man. I think about the concept of success and failure all the time, man, and how it affects Black men and women and their mental health. Because we work in these jobs, like we could talk about sports, but we also got to bring it to some of these people working in some of these jobs, corporate America, office jobs, working around people that they don't relate to on a personal level. And sometimes the concept of, being accepted, being rejected, all of those types of things can really cause some issues. And right now, I think I want to bring a focus and, to mental health and talk about how success and failure can affect Black mental health, man. So what y'all think about that?
I'll say overall, because I'm glad you brought this up because I'm saying that like this generation deals with a lot of depression, all these little funny stuff that we didn't go through growing up, all these little diseases, and people are wondering why. Well, you just said it. Success and failure is based off fame and repute. So now your success is how many followers you have, how many, and if you think about it, back in the days, we only saw, my inner circle. So if I was hanging out with Nate and Shaka, your jacket would determine whether I like those jackets, your hat, your car. Now we see everybody's jackets, everybody's car, and everybody's faking like they live a great life. So you, as a child in this generation or a young person, is scrolling every day through a social media, looking at stuff that's telling you where you're not and what you don't have. You're not meeting the success level that is in this, that this social media says you're not pretty enough, you're not rich enough. You're seeing that every day. I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't have that. I want that. I want to be there. I want to visit there. And you don't have none of that. How would that not create depression if you're doing that every single day of your life, all day long?
Can I ask that?
Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
Yeah, so I agree. You know what I'm saying? Like social media, when you think about like how suicide rates amongst African Americans, right? Like at one point it was damn near non-existent. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that just wasn't something we did, right? Like, that wasn't something that would happen. But like as social media started happening, like we've been able to like see how everyone judges us, trolls and you like, you could bully folks through social media, stuff like that. Like all of those different things is what's creating like stress on our kids. Cause like you said, this is what they're doing all day on their phones, you know what I'm saying? On social media. And some of us are too, so we get caught up in a world that isn't really our world. Like at one point we used to have regional styles. Like, like this is what we do in Jersey. This is what we do in Brooklyn. This is what we do in here, there. It's hard to even see how folks are keeping up with that because everything is on like online. You get
Look,
a chance to
Right.
I have a question to ask everybody here. What's your measure of success? First Nate answer,
Yeah.
and then Shaka answer.
Well,
What's your
that's
measure of success?
honestly, to answer that question, I'm glad you say that. I look at it based on every endeavor. It's not just like
Absolutely.
it's not based on like my life in general, but I look at it like it first off start with me having an expectation. Like if I don't have a measurable, if I don't have something that's already set as a goal, like this is when I get to it. Like for the show, for instance, right now we're building this show and my goal is to have a growing audience. I don't have a number for that yet, but I'm going to look at how we have the numbers for the first week and the numbers for the second week, the third week, the fourth week. It might go down a little bit, but my expectation is that the numbers for the first week and the numbers for the seventh week are different, and that the number on the other side is higher. You know what I'm saying? And so that would be when I would say that that's a success. Now, I have to look at failure as a lesson, and I have to learn from that and look at, like, if I don't get that number, then what was it that took me away from that number? Because I can guarantee you, if I beat the number that I had in my mind, I'm not going to start learning anything. So I actually think that a certain amount of failure is important for me personally. I don't try to get caught up in whether I succeeded or failed at something. I look at all of it for good and what I can learn from it.
I agree. I think like failure, you need failure in order to succeed. You need to know what failure looks like, right? You don't necessarily have to have failure. You can see it, right? In order to know what success needs to be, right? You think about so many families, like I've had, like, when you see like your dad or your mom might have gone through some serious stuff, whether it been like drug abuse, whatever, right? And you see what they went through, and you're like, okay, that's not something I want to go through, right? Achievement, right? Achieving something, breaking curses, generational curses. That's success to me, right? Being able to do things like that, because that connects back to the past, that connects back to who I am and how I can help in the future, so that my generations like after me don't have to face that.
Right. And for me, success is happy. And I'm going to give you not fake happiness, not the happiness you can find if you go smoke a crack rock, and because you'll be happy for that hour that you high, or but not real happiness. And I say success is real happiness. For instance, my mother, she lived in the system whole life. She lived on welfare. That's how we made it, and somebody from a wealthier family would say, that's not very successful. But Nate knows me. I have slept on Nate's couch at times in life, and me and Nate have been roommates at times.
Yeah.
Because happiness is first to me. So I'm not going to work. I'm not going to go do a 9 to 5 that I'm not happy at, no matter what. I'd rather sleep on somebody's couch and pay the minimal, because that's my level of happiness. Now, somebody else's level of happiness is having a bedroom and a bed and a this, and then that's their level of happiness. But for me, it's the happiness of contentment. Nate knows I never complained once sleeping on your couch. And I had one of the biggest, one of the nicest places in Midtown Atlanta, and it was all the same. So happiness is basically, like you're seeking financial gain for financial happiness, to be able to do what you want to do in life or provide or stuff like that.
Exactly. And it's so important to kind of like, when you ask the question of what is success, I do think about it in two different ways when I see that word, because you can think about, were you successful in an endeavor? And would you also think about it of, are you a success? Now, when I think about, am I a success? I think about that as, all of the decisions that I make on a daily basis coincide with all of the plans that I have for my future. You know what I'm saying? So that means, like, if I'm doing something today that's going to block me from the future that I intend to have, it's hard for me to call myself a successful person. Or call myself a success. You know what I'm saying? And in my opinion, learning how to make everything that you do coincide with the goals that you set forward for yourself is the best way to live. That's what a culture is. You know what I'm saying?
Now, look, I agree with you. And check this. Imagine somebody who got a college degree, right? Got their job that they always wanted, worked at 9 to 5, got a family and stuff like that, but still works like check to check. Then you got somebody who never been to college, not one day in his life, you know what I'm saying, but found out a great idea, an invention, and then put all of his energy into that and made it a success and is now a millionaire, right?
Right.
Who's the successful one?
Right.
Well, I went to college.
Success? Can they success in their own right? You know, or is the one that made the money and didn't go to college more successful than the guy that went to college, doing what he wants to do, but like living check to check?
And another great one for what you're saying too is like a Jake Paul. So Jake Paul is 2-0. He's made millions off of boxing. Is he more successful than somebody who had a successful boxing, who had a boxing career, who didn't make as much money, who's not undefeated, but they were a real boxer and they had a great career and didn't get what he got out of the sport?
There's real people, because you're right, because there's real boxers out here in the world that have never made $600,000 for a fight, and they still out here fighting every day, getting beat up in sparring sessions with headaches. Do you know what it's like to go to fight for a living, the life of a person who fought, what you feel like after that?
Right.
That's your lifestyle.
And you know what I'm saying? You're a warrior. And like it doesn't matter whether you did it professionally, whether you did it like because this is what you like to do. People who have a calling to do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Whether just like karate. Like that has to be like a lifestyle, like, you know, something that you live. You know what I'm saying? It's like a warrior type of life. You don't want to be broke. But you don't want to be broke. You're right. You don't want to be broke. There's some people who don't mind.
Some people are doing it because they don't want to be broke. Some people are not warriors at all, and they get on there because they say UFC is popular, people making money, people, they see the money, they see the top two people, and they don't see the rung of people below that lose, that are just in there, and they out there trying to, be a part of the scene. They don't realize that half of them not making enough money to feed their families, and they're on TV. You know what I'm saying? So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, sometimes what we consider like famous, some of those people still have a broken lifestyle. So when you think about broke, it's not like you want to use that word in a bad way, but like something that you're doing is breaking your ability to reach your goals. You know what I'm saying? And it's usually something about what you're doing. It's not about who you are, but like people who do drugs to the point where they can't make enough money to live, in a home. You know what I'm saying? Like that's broke because your attitude and your culture, your way of living is broken. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, there's so many, like when you talk about broke, like what are we talking about? Broken spirit, broken and money,
broken heart.
You know what I mean? Broken heart. Like broke is that's a concept, where you are without, right? You have depleted, a certain level of that, you know what I mean? But you might have a great deal of the other one, right? Have a great deal of spirit, right? But not have any wealth and be richer than the person who had the wealth, who didn't have the spirit the next time. You know what I'm saying? So like stuff like that can fluctuate. And so like having wealth of spirit, I think is important.
Right. And that's the answer to the question. Success is subjective. It's all about who's watching it, whose eyes is coming out of it.
And I really hope that the young cats out here in the street is watching this and getting a chance to learn from some wisdom that come from a collective almost century of wisdom and knowledge, man, come together on this episode right here, man. Like, I don't know if people realize that the multiplicity, that's the reason why the times is important, man, that Martin times Malcolm is so important, man, because when you get 2 people together, 3 people together, 4 people together, the information that y'all can trade, that we can trade, or that the people in the world can trade is amazing. And I want everybody to know that, the power in you, the power is in you to recapture the revolutionary. And as I was growing up, we used to have music that allowed us to feel good about smiling and being good and feeling good. R&B music used to be a theme for the world. Like you could hear R&B music blasting from windows and cars. Now I don't really hear R&B music that way. I don't hear love music, as I would call it, R&B music, as some people may call it, being played anywhere the way that it was when I was growing up. The main artists I see is rappers, and I'm not sure, but did the R&B genre die? And I mean, if so, did it have an effect on Black love and lovemaking?
Hell yeah. I'm around young people now that be smashing in the room, and I hear them smashing to to
21
Young
Savage.
Thug and 21 Savage. And what goes to you in a moment of trying to create intimacy in a moment? How you gonna get intimate to what the fuck? Take the bitch, and I'm calling you a bitch while I'm looking down at you. And come on, man, what the? No, yes, I think it affected it big time. I think it was a plan to masculate. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but to make a more masculine society to where men are disrespecting women. But it's mainly in our culture, and I don't mean black culture. I mean the hip hop, that community, the urban community, all races, because it is gone. Who's the R&B artist now? Who I'm not saying, like I said, I know Jacquees could sing, I know Bryson Tiller could sing, but there's no predominant, there's no Whitney Houston, there's no Mariah Carey, there's no Jodeci, and I'm not gonna go because we could all chime in with a million artists. There's none of those right now. How?
Yeah.
And it's because music is mass media. They control what we hear.
They control what we hear. They control listen to what they want us to think like at the time, right? And so, like you said, hip hop is very like machismo, masculine right now. Like even like the women that are talking, you know what I'm saying, or rapping, you know, is more about their bodies and what they can do and stuff like somebody asked me the other day, they was like, who's better rapper? What's her name? Megan Thee Stallion. Oh, I think I was having this conversation with my kids, like Megan Thee Stallion or Nicki Minaj, right? Like
that's the same.
Right. I said, all right, one, I would say Nicki Minaj, right? And the only reason why is because it seems like she's saying a little bit more, you know, than what Megan's saying, but she ain't saying that much more, like, you know what I mean? But it seemed like she's saying her word flow is a little bit different.
Right.
Megan seems like it's just for show, you know what I mean?
Where's the Lauryn Hill right now?
Where's Lauryn Hill?
Femininity, the femininity and the appreciation for it.
And the consciousness, like what they're saying.
Excuse me 1 second. I don't mean to cut you off, but Nate, I don't know about that, because when these people, like when I hang out with people from the younger generation and they actually get into R&B music, they love it. They love the R&B music, and they're not getting it, so they don't even know whether to like it or not. You know what I'm saying? You got to think, man. When you talk about female rap, we went from Queen Latifah, who you calling a bitch, to now Megan Thee Stallion's new song, "Where Them Hoes." How it goes? It's some hoes in this house. That was made to disrespect women. That was made to put women down. That song. That was made to treat hoes like hoes. And now women, the top rapper, are now using those disrespectful lyrics in their songs to empower. Like that's a program. That's not right. And I'm not saying,
like, and it's not it's
empowering themselves, but it's not empowering their communities.
No, it's not empowering. It's not empowering even them. You know what I'm saying? It's just giving them a moment, just like Hot Girl Summer. You know what I mean? It gives them a moment to like be independent, right?
Right.
At the same time, it's also making their standing kind of like is lowering their standing,
right?
You know, by them calling themselves hoes, and it's the same. It's honestly the same thing with like nigga. You know what I mean? You know, a little different, but it's like the way that it's being used is like, okay, yeah, I'm a bitch, I'm a hoe, I'm a this. Where our women back in those days, they were fighting against that. Like, you know, Lauryn Hill and Queen Latifah, like all of these rappers, India R.E., like I'm thinking about Erykah Badu. Like even in the 90s, there was some sisters that were saying stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, now it's just like nothing.
But I want to be fair too to the women out there and the people that listen to that music. I want to be fair in saying I get the concept. I get it that men and women are equal. So if men are going to be out here talking about it's cool to fuck every bitch in the world, then women are saying, well, we could say it's cool too, because there's no differentiator.
But that just shows the way that we got it.
Wait, I just want to say, but at the end of the day,
where they got it from.
Right. You know, and at the end of the day, who's wifing up those girls?
Nobody.
That's what I want to say. At the end of the day, these girls that are holding on to these hoes and stuff, who's wifing up the Amber Roses? Who's wifing up the Black Chinas? They're getting smashed and sent to the road, and that's what these young girls need to see. That okay, there's a Cardi B that got wifed up, but what's she dealing with in her relationship?
Yep, exactly. And honestly, you got to think about what people are really willing to take, what they want, and what they individually dealing with. And relationships ain't nothing to play with, like when it's yours. And honestly, I think that the lack of a love making message is not in our community anymore. Even if it was just the music, like if you was listening to a dope Marvin Gaye song that came out, you couldn't get through the song without talking about some love stuff.
Right.
And that way, even if you weren't that type of dude, you might be out here, Rolling Stone type dude, but you at least had the understanding that that's something that is important in your life and important in the woman's life. You know what I'm saying? We making the trade. We asking the woman for what she has to give, but we're not even willing to give her any level of sensitivity, any level of like objectivity towards like letting her make her own choices sometimes, like with the way that she's objectified, like calling her a bitch and a hoe. Like, you just met this girl. You don't know if she a bitch or a hoe. You know what I'm saying? It's just your word. You just using that. Like, that's the word we use. Like, when it was like R&B music was the thing, men was talking in a little bit more of a suave way. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, even if it was just to get in the draws and dip.
Right.
I mean,
And I'm gonna
that
say,
goes back far, man. It's not just the like the 90s, the 80s, like the 70s, the 60s. Like, people was talking about nasty stuff, you know what I mean? But they had it coded. I've been stroking, I'm stroking to the east. Like, he talking about, but he's not like saying it outright. I think that today is just like late, you know what I mean? And it doesn't leave any room for imagination. It doesn't leave any room.
And Nate, you said that they took the love out of it. Now, me personally, I believe there's a huge agenda in music. So I'm not going to go deep into that, but what I am going to say is, if my name is Bliss, believing love is simply the solution, then what's the reciprocal of that? Take the love out and you create the chaos. And that's why I believe the love in the R&B genre was taken out, to take the love out of what we had. Because there's no love in it no more. It's fucking. It's not love.
And everybody hates on the dude that tries to put love into the music. Like, if you are a hip hop artist and you try to put love into your music, you kind of get clowned in a way, you know what I'm saying? Because it don't fit the mold, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we need that music, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of us was raised on some R&B music, man. And
soon there's gonna be songs about STDs, and they're gonna be like, "Come and get your herpes." It's coming, man. Because I've been in conversations with guys, young guys, that think it's cool. Like, herpes, you ain't never had no STD? What? You gotta get you one. Everybody gets one. I've heard those conversations.
Bruh, tripping. But that's the way that we get when we don't have a connection between the older generation and the new, younger generation. And the music is one that's getting lost, because like the 90s lost it because everybody wanted to be a record deal. Everybody wanted to chase a record deal, go to these big companies in these corporate offices in these high skyscraper buildings. And they wanted to be approved by these large organizations that could put your name out in front of the whole country in one button press, instead of doing the work that some brothers are doing right now to actually build their audience and build the actual reputation for being good in your craft, so that when you drop something, everybody can jump on it and they can think, oh, this person made some music, I'll go find it wherever I can find it. That's what they're doing now. But like right now, we in a world where we don't even have, like, I don't even know of anybody who's repping for, like, I'm thinking about like Chris Brown, Ty Dolla $ign. I don't even think anybody who, like, dang, if you wanted to listen to some music, you wanted to turn your wife on, turn your lady on, you wanted to, kick it back, you got to go back and listen to some old music. You can't listen to nothing new.
I do. And you said, like about the Malcolm and Martin Luther King thing you said earlier, the same way that Willie Lynch is still alive today, that is the way they're keeping Willie Lynch alive. Meaning, you said that we need to bridge the gap between young and old. Willie Lynch already separated that, and Willie Lynch is still alive today through the people pushing that message. That's how we have to keep Martin and Malcolm alive, in a sense. Not so much their exact message, but they're still keeping Willie Lynch principles alive 200, 300 years later, so he still lives. Because you just gave a great example, the old and young separation, the dark and light, all those separations are still going on today, and they're working. It keeps our culture super separated, because we're all competing with each other. Right now, somebody's watching this podcast looking at like light skin, dark skin. No matter what, that's the first thing they see. Light skin guy, dark skin guy. Where does that come from? We're souls. We're brothers having a conversation. What is
Well,
that
don't
called?
worry about that because I'm gonna turn down the light and all the shit on the back end when I do the editing, so it's gonna flip flop. I'm gonna make
Yeah,
Shaka the
make
light
these dark,
skin
man.
and make you the dark skin one.
Dark
We gonna change it
Yeah.
up.
Lighten you up. I'm kind
Yeah.
of
For everybody who need to have those visual cues to help them to interpret. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how we gonna rock it. You know what I'm saying? But I really appreciate you guys, man. Shaka and Jason, it's been great talking to y'all, man, in terms of like where we've been going. I feel like it's one of those things that our generation really, I think, needs and deserves is a voice that can go back to the times. Like I know Shaka, me and you both know Mukasa Ricks, and knew him as the man who coined the phrase "the Black Power," and he was the first person to say that. And for us to know him really well, and there's other people that he and I can both mention individually in our own communities, from our own communities, to be able to speak from a voice that understands what they thought about, what they cared about, and how they felt, and be able to bring that to the world of 2020, where people are, dealing with different things, and there's no leadership. It's hard to find a culture to really identify with for a lot of people. A lot of people are just running around, and Black culture doesn't have a definition. So I'm really happy that you guys could come on and help us to start the process of redefining the culture for us, and really just start having these conversations that'll open up the community.
I'll say one thing before we get ready to go.
Yes.
So Jason had just brought up the Willie Lynch letter, right? And this is probably a topic we can have for another time. But I spoke to the person who wrote the Willie Lynch letter.
To the person, I thought this was hundreds of years old.
Yeah. So maybe we'll save that for another time.
I'm interested. Hey, I'm interested. Make sure I'm there for that one. I want to hear that. I'm interested. Because especially because we touched on the Willie Lynch, and most people, I mean, not most, but a lot of people out there are saying, what the hell is the Willie Lynch? Who is that? What is that? Because I didn't know about it. But I'll tell you, the person, I was in the studio recording music, and the guy had me read the letter. And the first thing I said is, how is this not going on now? I was like, was this written today or back then? How is this not going on now? So I'm definitely interested to hear more about that.
Yeah,
We probably have to make that the next episode. That's the reason why we can always change this up, We can always change and edit the next episodes for our liking. Because if it's hot, why not?
And it's relevant. Even though people have been programmed to believe it was something years ago, when you read that letter and look at the times now, it'll make clear sense that somebody's still using this.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was written in these times, and that's why you about to tell us.
Yeah.
Or did one of your ancestors tell you about it because they were around back then? I want to know.
We got to talk about
what I need.
Maybe it was written in this day and time, and somebody from the past had a time machine, came to the future and picked it up, brought it back to where they started, and it was like, this is how we get niggas in line for 2020.
Y'all the answer. Y'all gonna be like, oh snap.
They got Uber. They got Uber time machines because I'm paying.
All right, man. Well, once again, man, this is the Martin Times Malcolm podcast show, here to give you guys conversations that recapture the revolutionary and just keep it real with you, man. This is Nate, one more time, signing off. You can always find us on our website, martintimesmalcolm.com. That is martinxmalcolm.com. You can find us on any podcast platform. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Clubhouse. You can find us everywhere you want to find us, as long as you find us.
Black Planet.
Man, link in the bio, this man. Let's get up out of it. They tired of us.
Yeah, man.
This nation will
All right,
rise
fellas.
up by any means necessary.